Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with Winchester of Winchester 7 and the Runners. The band has just released a great new album called Heart of the Golden Mystics, and I am super excited to talk to them all about it. I want to sincerely thank you so much for taking the time out of your weekend to do this. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a great record on your hands. As I mentioned before we started recording, I've given it a couple run throughs, and it's just got that real, like, feel good classic rock meets modern edge to it. I don't know. There's something very refreshing about it. I
Oh,
really
thank you
do.
very much.
You're welcome. So I want to know what's it about?
So we had done an interview, I think during the last album, where they were like, hey, you're telling some stories in some of the songs. You got some themes that overlap here and there, which may have been completely unintentional.
Yeah.
They said, what do you think about maybe doing a concept album one day? And I said, you never know. I'm not going to rule it out. Maybe if there was an idea that came up. Well, coming out of the pandemic, we watched an inordinate amount of mysteries. So we wrote a song where like, oh, we'll write the song called Miss Mary's Memorial, where we imagine a group of young girls have gotten back together to talk about this lady who died in their hometown, and they've just come back to their hometown after having been away, and they're comparing kind of where they're at in their life and remembering Miss Mary.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, this was kind of nice. We've got a victim. It feels very much like a cozy mystery. But you're like, well, a couple albums ago, we did a song called The St. Simon Killer. We were like, maybe the killer should return. It'd be kind of cool to write a sequel. So
Okay.
we did that. And we are like, oh, great. We got a killer. We got a victim. Oh, no, we got a concept album.
I mean, I see
So,
nothing wrong with that. I'm all about the concept album because it gives the listener a storyline to follow. You know what I
well,
mean?
and that's exactly what started happening. So
Yeah.
we started off just telling more about the story and imagining a little bit more about it. And, we got a Order of the Golden Mystics is like this little cabal for the wealthy and powerful in the town,
Sure.
and they've framed our killer, the Saint Simon Killer, and turned him into like a corporate espionage sort of agent. But the lead guy, the colonel, actually stole his girlfriend in the process and then married her. And that so we got a little bit of a love triangle, we got a little bit of a power thing, and all kinds of stuff as subtext. And it made it fun to write from the different perspectives of everybody.
Totally. Well, hearing the backstory, I already know I need to go back and listen a little more closely just to kind of like, it's like you've created one long music video, basically a book, but in music form,
Yeah.
which I love. Um, you
Well,
know,
we want it to be one of those things where every song can come off the record and you can listen to it without either knowing that there is a concept or
sure.
care. So we thought every song needs to stand on its own, whether or not you care much about the story.
Right.
That was the intent.
But I also feel like, at least it feels like in the music industry today, everyone is focusing on singles. It has to
Oh
be,
yeah,
okay, we got to put out the catchiest single we can to attract the attention. But people aren't really creating the album experience anymore, which is a shame.
yeah,
So, but this
yeah.
is this is that, which is great. You should be able to sort of lose yourself in a
Yeah.
record, and there's a real cohesiveness about it, where you kind of feel
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, there are songs that stick out. There's always going to be, but at the same time, you can hit the start button or you can hit the play button on the first song and let it run through interrupted, and you've got yourself a concept record, which is, yeah,
Yeah,
becoming
that
more
was the
rare.
idea. We not terribly good at knowing what we're about to write. It's
Yeah,
always kind of like a little bit of a puzzle. There's
sure,
not
sure.
like, yeah, I've read, some people, they're like, oh, I wrote this great song. It took me 10 minutes. You're just like, oh my God, it was a huge hit. And isn't
Yeah.
that fantastic? Nothing like that happens for us. We just go ahead and we play a little riff, or we've got like a catchy phrase, and it just kind of comes together like we're working out a puzzle.
I
And
love
by the
that.
end, we're more surprised than anybody.
Oh, yeah, is that right?
Yeah, we're like, oh, that one's okay.
That's funny. Another major highlight that I took from this record is that you're not just creating, one solid rock sound. It pulls from so many different influences and styles and genres, and it's sort of become its own thing. While it's,
Oh, thanks.
but I want to hear
Yeah,
from
we
you, like,
we
what's the
get
elevator pitch?
we kind of get tired of the idea of having a sound. Certainly, like I
Sure.
think when we play anything, and you can tell it in like any cover tune that we do, there's always a thing where you know it's our band.
Yeah.
But like we always try to take a fresh approach as we get into every song, and have a little bit of a stretch, and bring in some different styles and influences that we share. And we like that variety. We don't ever want it to be any one album where like there's no surprises. So it's a bit of fun. And I just got done doing some vocal overdub just before this session on a new song we're working that's oddly enough got a little bit of a country flair to it, which
Okay.
we don't really listen to much country apart from Johnny Cash, but
That's okay.
this one just kind of came out with a little bit of a twang. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one thing, but also you want to do what
Yeah,
makes you happy. If that's the direction that you manage to go
it's
in,
just the way it came out.
yeah, why not try it out? And so obviously you're not the only member in the band. I would love for you to, talk a little bit more about the other members, maybe what they're doing, what they bring to
Yeah,
the table, and kind of
yeah.
how the process works of you guys making your music.
Well, I'm sorry they couldn't be here today. We actually live abroad from one another,
Oh yeah,
but we're originally from the same place. We lived in kind of a closed society, and one day they decided they'd had enough. And in those kind of places, everybody's got a bit of a role, and mine was to try to convince people to stay. And as I went out and tried to persuade them, we kind of came to terms that we'd be better off as a band. And we traveled around together for quite a bit. And then, in an effort to see the world and bring in some of the different musical styles that eventually found their way into our sound, we each took up in different places that we just kind of liked. So now, when we go to record, a lot of it's virtual. We'll do a shared cloud session where we do overdubs separately from one another. We'll have like some Zoomish sort of band rehearsals and
sure.
chats, and then when we need to get down to it, they'll fly over. We record out of my studio here in Atlanta.
Nice. Okay, so everyone, are they all in the US or are they all over the world?
Uh, Jack's over in the UK,
Okay,
and then Phil lives over outside of Amsterdam.
gotcha. All right, wow, this
A
is
little bit
kind of
envious of him.
a serious global project at this point.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you find, I mean, you can't really answer for them, but maybe you can, that just for everyone being so far away from each other, or maybe what they listen to, has any impact on your guys' sort of like really diverse sound?
Yeah, it's funny because we share a little bit of a common ground from having initially been a unit that was very close traveling together. And still, when we go to
Yeah,
do shows, we travel together. So we do compare notes, but certainly those life experiences, that come from us from every day and the different
yeah,
cultures that we're a part of, they do influence different things we have. I think it's most often like in something like a phrasing. I'll go to write a lyric and they'll suggest, maybe you work it around like this, and we find something different. Or they
sure.
say something in studio, and I kind of go, oh, I'm going to write that one down. So we do have a little bit of that. Yeah, I think it does influence it a little.
Okay. Is there any possibility of you guys maybe getting together to play shows? I know that might be a little more, easier said than done.
We do that from time to time. We just don't, make a big fuss out of it. So I think there's a lot of, the traditional touring circuit. We're going to launch. We're going to have these cities. We're going to have these dates and these T-shirts. And we haven't really gone about doing that. We just kind of do one-offs.
Oh, that
And
makes
we find a
sense.
place, we want to go, and we kind of make a weekend out of it, play a show, and hang around a little.
Gotcha.
Get
Yeah,
to see a little bit more of the place and meet the people better.
I think that makes it more special too, as opposed to
Yeah.
just like, all right, guys, we're hitting the road for 3 weeks and everyone's got to get together. But
Well, we each have families, so it's
yeah,
not something that we grew up, being on tour like that. We were more of an accidental band.
okay. I see nothing wrong with that. It sounds like
Yeah.
you guys are making music for the love of it rather
Yeah.
than like the business end of it. You truly
Well,
enjoy
we wouldn't
it.
mind a little bit of the cash from that if there is any to be
Yeah.
had, but yeah, right now there's a little bit of love too.
Yeah. No, I mean, it goes both ways. I understand that. So, in terms of you guys actually making music, who's usually the person spearheading the project, saying like, "Okay, guys, we got to move it in this direction. We got to do this. We got to do that."
Hmm. I think any one of us might argue ourselves. But usually it comes, I think, from something that I'll bring to the band.
Sure.
I'll usually work out some chords ahead of time, or a phrase ahead of time, and bring it to them. And as we workshop it,
Okay.
we'll kind of change the arrangement around, and flesh out the rough bits, and then we end up with something. Each of their contribution adds something that wasn't there initially.
Sure, sure.
So it's like that puzzle thing I was mentioning. By the time we're done, much different from what we started with, or what I started with, even.
Got it. That makes sense. And then, yeah, I do want to talk a little bit more about the meaning of this record and maybe
Sure.
beyond. Are you guys the type of band that are always working towards the next thing, like storyline
Yeah.
wise? Like, is this record going to see a continuation a year or 2 years from now?
Well, I guess maybe this is the interview I talk about then, where I go, "Hey, you never know."
Yeah,
You never know. Um, right now, the we started work on the next one, and as I mentioned, this one song is kind of coming out a little countryish. We've got a theme. We're thinking that we're going to talk about slices of life from a little bit of a metaverse kind of thing, and that might be fun to do. But we're going to try to stay away from as much of a narrative as we had on this last one, because well, writing the story across the full album, is satisfying when you're done. I think about midway through, you're going from having that green field worth of ideas to, well, what do we fit in here that makes sense? And it can be it can be a little challenging.
yeah.
We want to break from that, so we're going to take some just a theme driven sort of thing on the next one, and maybe we'll come back to it one day. I'd love to do some other story even, but I'm very conscious of, like, once you get into doing that, it's hard to say, "Oh, I don't want to make a story for this album."
That's true.
Kind of
And
feel
people
for
know what to
Roger Waters in that
expect.
way.
No, you're right. You're right. Hey, you know what? Maybe like 10 years from now, you celebrate the 10th anniversary of it and you put
Right?
out a 5 song EP, just a little
Could be.
continuation thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not against sequels.
I mean, yeah, you figure it out. Time will tell. I think that's kind of the hardest part with making music or any art. You can't really force it. Once you force it, the people can tell that it's like, oh, this kind of seems like, the heart and soul and passion wasn't in it compared to the last one. It just
I
did it
think
to
so.
do it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot to our process. I mentioned it's like a puzzle, but there's an
exactly.
element that feels like you're channeling something from the ether. So it has to be very organic, where like it just kind of comes to you and it comes out. And as I say, it's always kind of surprising. A lot of times it happens with like a riff or something you're playing, or like, where'd that come from? Like,
Right.
okay, cool, let's keep doing that.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then in terms of sound, I can almost assume that you guys will continue to experiment. Like the next,
Absolutely.
obviously it's like you said, you're not going to make the same thing twice, but it still sort of has to have that signature essence to it at the same time for
Yeah,
whatever comes next.
I think so. We want to stretch from time to time. I think when we did a cover on this last album of New Order's Bizarre Love Triangle, it's an oldie but goodie, and it was really fun to do because we put our own kind of spin on it.
Right.
It sounds like us while still being true to the source material. Um, but there are touchstones that will come back to you, particularly in my electric ukulele tones. I can't help but use a fuzz. So
Sure.
there's certain songs where you do, like, we wrote on this album House of Cards, and
Yeah.
that's people have said, "Oh, that one sounds very much like you guys," and I'm like, "You must have written it in your sleep." I'm like, "Well, it wasn't that easy, but
Yeah.
if
If
you
only.
like it."
Exactly. Well, I think that's the thing is like when you're trying to make music, it never happens. But when you're
Yeah,
driving on the freeway or whatever and it pops into your head, you're like, I gotta pull over. I gotta get my phone out and sing it into the
sure.
phone.
Yeah,
You can't
accidental happy.
you cannot anticipate the creativity. It's truly impossible.
That's right. Well, and a good example of that is on this album. There's a song called "Married for the Money," and that's a song that was pretty much complete by the time I brought it to the guys in the studio.
Yeah.
I got COVID and I was quarantined, and I had nothing to do, but I had my ukulele next to me. And as I got tired of binge watching more mysteries, I started to watch Pistol, Danny
Yeah.
Boyle's miniseries about the Sex Pistols, and I was like, "Well, that's so great. Why can't we write something that's much more
Yeah.
bah?" And I ended up writing "Married for the Money" on the spot. And I don't know that you can hear Sex Pistols, but for me, I was trying some big chords because I just wanted to rock, and
I
that's
think
how it came out.
that's the best part of influences. It doesn't need to be a direct ripoff, but as long as you
Yeah,
was there and that's what created it, it's really all that matters.
I think so.
That's awesome.
Anyway, we were happy with it.
You should be happy with it. Like I said, the final project of this is great. Like it's super
Thanks.
refreshing. Uh,
Thank you.
yeah,
We also owe quite a bit to our mix engineer and co-executive producer John Paz. He really contributed a lot, and his studio engineer Nor Madagascar contributed keyboards, and we use those a little bit more than we've used on some of the prior albums where we had Phil playing the keyboards, but he just kind of picks out melodies, so it was more of an augment. And this time we wanted to lean into it a little bit more, so it kind of came out pretty cool. We might do that again.
yeah, I would say so. I also think people who aren't truly tuned into the making of music underestimate the producers and the mixers and the engineers. They kind of just,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, well, the band put everything together and that's just how it sounded in the studio. But
that's right. I just love to give them a shout out because I know how hard they work.
should
They're a really important piece. I often tell John he's the fourth runner.
they can be like the other half of the band, like the
That's
other
right.
part, the other half of the brain that kind of fills in the gaps.
That's right.
Totally. I have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
This one is basically like you've sort of detailed a little bit what this year is going to look like, but I still consider us very much at the top of 2023. So, what are some
Sure.
lofty goals that you'd potentially like to hit, or some things you foresee happening?
Well, I'd like to finish up another album. We've been trying to. I guess we the first year that we were out, we did two in 1 year, and it wasn't really like we just sat down and wrote two albums. We had a whole bunch of material and decided to record the first. So
Sure.
we wrote a few more new ones and then used the leftovers on the second. So sophomore effort, maybe not as strong as as the initial, but since then we've been doing an album a year. I'd like to kind of keep that stretch. Usually we release it towards the holidays, and we'd love to be able to come out with that this year. We have some intent to shoot some more, like another music video. I think maybe we'll
Yeah.
get one or two out there, and love to be able to have a chance to play some shows. But we'll have to see how the schedule sorts itself
That's
out.
completely understandable. I just think the music industry nowadays is so unpredictable. Truly, no one
It
knows
is.
what's going to happen. You just got to go with the waves of it.
That's right.
Too buddy. Well, I'm looking forward to whatever happens. I'm sure some
Thank
good
you.
things will happen. They always will.
Hopefully.
Um, my last one for you here is basically for the person that is going to discover your guys' music from this. What is an opening message you'd like to say to them before they listen for the first time?
Oh, I think it might differ depending on who you ask in a band. For me, I might start with it's not a guitar. It's an electric ukulele. I
Wow.
get a lot of reviews where they go, "Man, the guitar is great." I'm like, "But it's not." I've got this electric ukulele, and I don't play it like a ukulele.
Sure.
So you'd expect that when you hear ukulele, you expect a plink a plink, and I just, I want it to rock. So that's all ukulele and bass on it. So from my perspective, that's a good thing to know.
I
But
you're right.
but apart from that, I hope that maybe they have a little bit of take that we want to have a bit of fun, tap your feet, and don't take it too seriously.
I think that's a perfect opening message. I back it up
Thank
wholeheartedly.
you.
Um, well, let me please plug your guys' music for you one more time here.
Sure, thank you.
If you guys didn't catch it the first time around, the band is called Winchester 7 and the Runners. The record is called Heart of the Golden Mystics. I back it up. I hope everyone gives it a listen. We will have the links in the article so that people can listen and share and follow along and stay up to date. It sounds like there's a ton more on the way in some capacity. So now's the time to start paying attention.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you having us here today.
You're very welcome. I really thank you for taking the time. This has been great.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
Appreciate it.
Speak soon. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.